Welcome everyone to another episode of Talking with Ghosts. I actually got a very special guest with me today, somebody I respect very well, and I've been a fan of for over a couple years now. And I'm hoping I don't butcher his last name because I think every time at the shows I always say it wrong. I have my guest, IWC color commentator and ring announcer, also helps with the Ring of Honor as well, Nick Lendl. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, man. Thanks. I appreciate you having me.
Well, I want to appreciate you again. I mean, I know you're a father and you have so many other better things to do, and to take a little bit of time to talk to a small guy like me is awesome. So for the people who may not know you, can you give a little bit of a background on yourself? Obviously, I know you because I've been following you forever, but for some people who may not.
Yeah, my name's Nick Lendl. I'm a ring announcer, color commentator with IWC here in Pittsburgh. And then I'm also a ring announcer for Ring of Honor Wrestling, which is on Fox every weekend. So check it out.
Which is super exciting too, because realistically, there's a time where no one really can even watch Ring of Honor on live TV. I think the one time I seen it was like 11 or 12 o'clock on like channel 22 or whatever, and it was disappointing, especially for how much good wrestling was going on in Ring of Honor. Obviously, that's how I first met you. Fun story. A bunch of my friends, we go to a bunch of the Ring of Honor shows, and when we go to Ring of Honor shows, we try to sit front row because one, it's super cheap, and two, it's the best way to get the best experience. And that's actually how we ran into you. Is I think I don't know what happened. I think someone threw something at you in the show, and I think we were like, "What the hell?" The guy's just sitting there. Then you actually like had a conversation with us after that. Then after that, I was like, "I'm a fan for life. This is just a genuine dude who just likes to interact with the fans and who's one for wrestling, basically."
That's really cool.
And with that being said, I have to ask, do you have a bigger fan than me, besides maybe your wife and family?
No, I don't know. You're definitely one of the top fans. I appreciate it. You're always commenting on my posts and sharing all my stuff. So yeah, I definitely appreciate the support.
And I definitely try to keep up with your spotlights as well, which were awesome. Sadly, you haven't done them in a while. I'm hoping to see those come back at some point because those were really cool. I think I was actually just watching the one with Julie Lynn, I believe, just a little bit ago, just catching up.
Yeah, we did a few of those over the pandemic. We were just trying to get some new content out because we do have the IWC network, and yes. From March last year up until June, I believe, or maybe July, we didn't have we weren't running any events. We didn't have any new content to put out. So that was an idea we put together, myself, Xander Gabriel, Jack Pollock. We had a couple web shows, and they did have a very positive reviews. So
I can safely say I was a part of every single one of them. I like you guys were, I get you guys were working with your backs against the wall a little bit during this pandemic and all that, and how you guys came over that by doing these little web shows, just trying to keep all your fans involved and keeping them still entertained some way, somehow, even though you were just at home. It was awesome to see, and it was a real inspiration, to be honest.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
they were fun.
Yeah, Mr. Plummer and all you guys at the IWC really know what the hell you're doing. And I mean, again, being a Pittsburgh kid, it's really good to see, and I try to support as much as I can. I love it, man. I really do. And now that I got my ego thing out of the way to figure out if I was the biggest fan of yours or not. So I want to dive a little bit more into you as being a fan of the wrestling industry. So who was someone that got you into wrestling when you were younger to help maybe push you to what you're doing today, or just put you in the direction of wrestling industry is where I want to be?
Well, when I was I think it was the second or third grade, probably second grade. This is the 90s. Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, D-Generation X. They were the big thing. And my best friend at the time growing up, his name was Brian. He had watched wrestling, but I never watched it. I didn't understand, especially at 6 or 7 years old, however I was. I didn't understand the difference between boxing and wrestling. I thought it was just fighting. And my dad had watched boxing here and there, and so it was on in the background, and I just never got into it. I never really care. So whenever my friends started talking about wrestling, I kind of thought it was the same thing, and I had never seen it. So I kind of dismissed it and didn't pay much attention to it. And then the one year, I guess it was that same year, Brian, for his birthday party, got all kinds of wrestling figures. And I saw the he got the Legion of Doom with the spiked shoulder pads,
Yeah.
and just all kinds of different characters. And I remember that day after the birthday party, everybody went back to his house, and he had got the ring. I think it was the Jack's Monster ring.
Oh yes, you had to have one. And if you were a kid in the '90s and you played with wrestling figures, if you didn't have a ring, you weren't really living, dude. I'm sorry.
So we all went back to his place, and everybody was playing with the wrestlers, and they were doing their entrances, and I didn't know anything about what was going on. So it was a couple weeks later, and they're still talking about, oh, this wrestling is awesome, this WWF, you got to watch it, Stone Cold and all this. So the one night we were over Brian's house, and he popped in a VHS tape. He had rented it at the Blockbuster, whatever it was, of WrestleMania from 1998. So WrestleMania was in March, I think, the end of March. This is about May, so it's right around the time that the VHS had been released. And the first thing I saw was Kane's entrance, and then I saw the Undertaker's entrance, and then I just thought, wow, like this isn't like boxing, like this is a show, this is entertaining, and I knew that when I was 7 years old.
Yes.
So we had watched the rest of the WrestleMania event, and the main event that year, Stone Cold beats Shawn Michaels, and that's where the championship reign of Austin starts. And then really right after that, Austin versus McMahon started. Yeah. And just so happened that night that I was over there watching the WrestleMania VHS was a Monday night. And, whenever it was time for my mom or dad, whoever it was, to pick me up and take me home, Brian said, hey, tonight at 9:00 on USA, WWF's on, you should watch it. Yeah. And it's crazy that I remember the time frame of this.
You never forget your first. That's what I always say. Like I have a very similar story than you. When I was a kid, so I was maybe 5 or 6 when I got into wrestling. Okay. How I got into it, my parents actually had all my aunts my uncles and their friends would come over to our house, and they put this on, and I'm like, well, what is this? Just some guys just like rolling around. And then you literally get caught up in the spectacle of it. And you watch these dudes do these like crazy acrobatic things with their bodies, how they slam each other, and how they're doing it all very safe, which I didn't learn about until later on in life, of course, because I was a little kid. But like you said, it's all in like the character, and like when you said Kane, like that was one of the things that really gravitated me towards Kane was his entrance, because you're like, first you got this big mass dude, big jacked, really neat outfit, something different that you've never seen, because you're so used to seeing The Rock, Stone Cold, Bret Hart. I was a big Razor Ramon fan, but like I'm used to seeing those guys who were just portraying like an actual person. This guy was portraying like almost like a demon in itself, and it was interesting to see that kind of be, well, a demon, I say, but like a big red machine, I guess we can kind of say now, on your TV screen at such a young age, and how impactful that was. So I understand that 100%. And I want to get back to the toys thing a little bit. So I had a big ring like that myself, but did you have the Titantron that played the music when they came out though? Oh yeah. Yep. My cousin Aaron and I actually fought over that many times when I used to bring it over for Christmas Eve events, because my brother and I would bring our wrestlers. My cousin Aaron, because he was a big WCW guy. Okay. He would bring his WCW guys. My brother and I would bring our WWF guys. We had the ring and the Titantron, and we'd have to fight over like the Titantron and who can use it and stuff, because that was just how we were. We were 3 really young wrestling fans, and always wanted the other person's stuff. It was interesting, but the Titantron was definitely one of my favorite pieces of childhood. How can I say, action figure collector, I guess I could say, as a kid. And
it was different at the time.
Oh, it was before its time too. Because now they have it to where I think they have somewhere they play videos and stuff. I don't know if that could be true, but I've seen some of that. But then I know you also have like the Super Soakers, and I was I don't know if you watched the Zach Ryder or Matt Cardona, Brian Myers podcast, but they do all the. Well, they did the one with the figures that had the sweat, and you poured the sweat on them. I remember that clear as day. I was like, that's interesting.
I remember those. Yeah.
But I know I'm going a little bit off topic here, because I wanted to get in a little bit more action figure stuff, because I know you are an action figure guy. You got a little bit of a collection, but I want to get back into Pittsburgh and wrestling. Okay. So Pittsburgh has many good wrestling talents. I mean, we have had some of my favorites, which are Britt Baker, Corey Graves, Kurt Angle, of course, Bruno Sammartino. From the Pittsburgh area, do you see anyone possibly coming up soon to maybe push those guys, like push their limits, like of their stardom at this point? Because Britt Baker's a talented AEW wrestler. Corey Graves is a great commentator. Also, was a very good wrestler before obviously everything that happened. And then we obviously know Kurt Angle and Bruno Sammartino. But do you see anyone else that could possibly take that leap to be just like those greats around here in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, there's obviously a few guys, and you have to look at it, a couple different ways. Obviously, they're very, very young in their career. I think they're only about 20, 21 maybe. But Zach Nystrom and Mandime,
Oh, yes.
in 10 years, they could be some of the biggest stars in the wrestling business. They're just way ahead of their time on the history of the business and just the way they are in the ring. And I noticed this the first time that Zach Nystrom came through the curtain when he had turned his back on Spencer, I believe it was, and he joined Team Big League. When he came through the curtain the next month, whatever it was, he looked like a star. I think him joining Team Big League was the best thing for him. And upcoming, a couple weeks from now at the anniversary event, Mandime faces Andrew Palace for the World Championship. That's a huge match. Yeah, but obviously, those two come to mind as, somebody who could be big stars here in the future. Obviously, Atticus Cogar is making the rounds, traveling all over, making a name for himself. He's somebody that's definitely going to be only bigger than he is now. And somebody who's wrestled a couple matches for IWC recently, but was never really a full-time IWC guy is Lee Moriarty.
Oh,
Lee
yes.
Moriarty is already a huge star, and I pick on him a lot because he doesn't understand how good he is.
Yeah.
But he could be anywhere right now, and I mean that he's really good.
It's very funny you bring him up because I when I went to the Super Indie tournament at the Wild Thing Stadium, it was one of the first Super Indie tournaments I was able to be a part of. And I think he was one of the guys that I was like, this guy's really good. Like, yeah. I feel like he's really, really good. And the fact that we aren't talking about him enough, I can agree, is an understatement. The guy is very talented. Some of the matches he had, the way he was selling some things, I can't remember. Right now, my brain's a little scrambled on who exactly wrestled because there was so much going on in Super Indie 19. But, like, every match he had, like, I can't say that it was bad. Me, and a couple of the guys I was sitting with, we all said like Lee literally showed us that like he actually is a main event player, and I don't know how old is he? Is he like maybe like 23? He looks young.
Yeah, he's young.
Yeah, he's so young. I mean,
that's what I said. Him. Same thing with Atticus. Atticus is only 22, 23. Yes. They're only going to get better. And then somebody who I can't leave off the list, and I'm baffled at the way that he hasn't really got an opportunity yet is Andrew Palace.
Oh, of course. Me too.
Andrew Palace is such a great talent. He's a good friend of mine, and he's just somebody that you just look at and you don't understand why he hasn't really gotten the opportunity he has. Well, he has a very different look. He stands out. He's great in the ring. He has good size. He has good look. Over the last couple months, he's really toned himself up in the abdomen and everything. He works hard, and that's a guy that I'm really pulling for because he's still younger. He's still late 20s, so he has time, but that's somebody that I would personally love to see get an opportunity somewhere.
And I'm very glad you actually brought up Andrew Palace because I wasn't going to let you get out of here with talking about him at least once, because I am as well as a huge Andrew Palace fan. Whenever I think the first IWC show I went to was the night I met Scott Hall, and that was the night I became a fan of IWC. It was the same night I got to meet my favorite wrestler, watched great wrestling the whole night. And I believe at the time he was a Super Indie champion, and I want to say he was facing Tatanka that night, but I could be wrong. He faced somebody. No, because Tonka was late that show. But he wrestled somebody. But that was like my first experience of the Tasmanian Devil. And as you said, as his character developed over time, like I've been trying to get into him too. I tried to get him on the podcast. I tried interacting with him. I tried being like I am with you and a lot of the other wrestlers that I really am fond of in IWC. and he is somebody that I am actually, like you said, baffled that he hasn't had an opportunity somewhere else, because he is what he says his gimmick is. He's fun.
Yep.
He's the all around most fun person to be part of. Even when I met him, like I was meeting him, he was talking so fast, I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't even let my brain comprehend. I just was like I just loved the whole idea of Andrew Palace as a whole, and agree. I hope something comes of his career in the future. And I think being IWC champion is just a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Two-time IWC champ, correct? So I don't know. We'll see where it goes, but I agree. He should definitely see a bigger future, and I only see it happening for him as well. Because again, he's also still young. And being that we're going through a global pandemic and whatnot, for a ring announcer for IWC and Ring of Honor, what's been the most difficult thing you've had to overcome?
Well, it's different because depending on where we are, depending on the venue, or however how tight everything is with the rules that day.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't like it. You said you were at the Super Indie event at the Wild Thing Stadium. I stood outside of the ring to do the introductions, which was weird because you're usually in the middle of the ring. Same thing with the Brownsville drive-in shows that we did a few of. I did commentary, but when I ring announced, I would stay at the commentary booth. I didn't get in the ring. For Ring of Honor, I'm wearing my mask 24/7 unless I'm talking on the microphone. So when we did a TV taping a few months ago, you're just sitting there with the mask on, and then you're waiting to announce. You take the mask off, you put it back on. But the Baltimore, or the Maryland, I should say, Athletic Commission was very, very strict with us. But it was a learning process for everybody, and if it keeps everybody safe, then.
Well, that's another thing too. Is like it's better to be safe than sorry, especially with the spike that we even had recently. It's always better to play it safe, so I can understand it completely. I worked in retail for a long period of time, so having to wear a mask for 8 hours a day, trust me, I understand it sucked.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'd rather feel as if someone's being safe by me having that mask on than just possibly give them the virus and then possibly leading to whatever. So for the Maryland state, for their committee to be that strict on it, I understand, and I think everyone should be a little more strict on it, and that's raise a little bit more of awareness as well. So yeah, being that you were also in the Ring of Honor bubble, is there someone you spent a lot of time with, or were you guys separated a lot just for safety's sake?
Well, yeah. Once we got there, everybody had their own room. Usually, you share a room with somebody. There's usually two people in a room. But we had our own rooms, and we were not allowed to leave the room. Period. They had people on each end of the hallway making sure that nobody came up to our floor, nobody left the floor. If you needed anything, anything from DoorDash, room service, or a Pepsi, you had to call this number and they would bring it to you. And we had to get tested 3 times. You got tested before we went to Baltimore. You got tested once you got to Baltimore, and then you got tested the day we left. So they want to make sure you don't have anything when you get there. They want to make sure you didn't pick up anything while you were there.
It's a safe precaution, of course.
Yeah, but when I do, have the time to interact with people, it's usually Joe Mandak, who's a referee for Ring of Honor. He actually is a referee for IWC now as well. Over the last year or so, he's come in. But he's just a Pittsburgh guy, and I met him working Premier Championship Wrestling in Cleveland. He was a referee there, and we just connected. Me and him have become really good friends, and usually more often than not, we travel together, if we're booked for Ring of Honor or IWC, whatever it may be. So, he's obviously someone that I, spend most of my time with when I could leave the bubble. We drove there together. We came home together. So
as long as everyone's safe, that's what matters, man. And yeah, I think I've seen you post about that him plenty of times. I think I actually sent him a friend request too. I think right after you promoted him, after he got hired at Ring of Honor, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, really nice guy as well. I never had a chance to meet him, but just how he presents himself in the ring, and obviously he's cool with you. So obviously I know he's a good dude because you're obviously a genuine person. So for your first night being like on the mic for either IWC or Ring of Honor, was there any nerves kind of settling in, and did anyone ever give you any advice to try to calm you down a little bit if you had any nerves?
No, it wasn't nerves. It was more of excitement. I wasn't nervous in the sense, oh, I don't want to mess this up, or oh, I need to remember my lines or anything like that. It was more, I've wanted to do this for so long, and this is it. So it was excitement. It was like a kid waking up on Christmas morning rather than a kid, having to go to school and present a presentation to an auditorium or something.
Yeah, like something you knew like 2 days in advance. You're like, oh, I got to get ready for this. Then you're stressed, and then once that finally happens, you're like, oh, I'm glad that's over. You're like, no, I want to do this again. Like it's almost like a drug you need to do again. Almost.
Well, it was for IWC at least. It was almost like a okay, finally, this is what I want type thing. Because when I got brought into IWC, I had talked about being a ring announcer, and they brought me on, and I had talked to Justin Plummer, and a couple days before the first show I was going to work, they had lost a color commentator, I believe, or not a color commentator, a play-by-play guy. Joe Dombrowski was booked. I don't know if it was CZW or somewhere else, and he couldn't be at the event. So they just threw me into that role. And this is the first time I had ever met anybody on the IWC roster. This is the first time I had met Farnsworth, who was my partner at the time, and just thrown in. So I did commentary for that show. The next event I did commentary, and then I think it was, and I was doing backstage interviews as well, which was really cool because the first event I really got to do backstage interviews for was the Night of the Superstars event in Meadville. So I did backstage interviews with Shelton Benjamin and
oh wow, it's funny.
Yeah,
I think this is the same event that was my first one.
Yeah,
it was Razor Ramon to talk.
Yeah, I believe that. That's the event you're talking about.
That is so funny.
So yeah, wow. The first interview I ever did was with Shelton Benjamin, because I believe he wrestled Darren Venero that event. I could be wrong, but yeah. So just like that, it was so cool, because I'd watched Shelton Benjamin as a kid.
Me too.
To be on camera with him was a big deal, but at the same time, I really wanted to ring announce. And it was at that event, because I think there were so many matches. I think they had 11 or 12 matches that night, that I ring announced 3 or 4 matches. And ever since that day when I ring announced those 3 or 4 matches, I've been, the ring announcer. I split time a lot of times with Dave Kitch.
Yeah.
So me and him a lot of times rotate. Sometimes, like the last event a few weeks ago, IWC Kickoff, I was on commentary.
Yes.
So Dave announced the whole show. And that's another thing too, is that, I don't know what the situation is, especially with COVID. People not permitted to come to the building because of protocol, or people that just want to stay away because, they don't want to take a chance. It's left the commentary position very empty. And Dombrowski's great. Dombrowski could 100% carry a show by himself, but it is easier to have a person with you to bounce off of. So the last couple months I have been thrown into that commentary role, which I don't prefer it, to be honest. I'd rather ring announce.
Yeah, I understand that.
But I'm happy to do whatever I can, because IWC was really the place that got me my start. Now, whatever Plummer needs, I'm happy to do for him.
Well, that's the beautiful thing too. Like I think like I know there was at one point in time where I could see myself color commentating, just because I just think it'd be kind of cool just to have that little niche under your belt. It's not something you want to do, but it's like cool to be like, hey, if anyone asks, like, hey, I can do that. And actually, to add on to your funny story about Shelton Benjamin, I actually that was the first time I ever had a chance to meet Shelton Benjamin. I was super excited because, just like you, I was a big fan of the Gold Standard. I wasn't a big fan of American or America's Greatest Tag Team. I was a big fan of the Gold Standard persona of Shelton Benjamin. So when I got to meet him, I was telling him how much of a fan of him. And then I was like joking around because he seemed kind of cool. I was like, all right, we'll take this picture and I'll be like Charlie Hosh and you're Shelton Benjamin. He gave me a really weird look. He gave me a really weird look, and I saw the picture, and I look at the picture, and I think he was I don't know if he was agitated with me or just kind of was like, man, this dumb kid. but and that was also around the first time where I actually started meeting wrestlers for the first time as well. I got to meet him, so of course I was being that like fanboy almost. Like, oh my god, this is so great to see. When I saw Razor Ramon, um, Scott Hall, honestly, like that was honestly one of the hardest things I ever did. Someone that it was so influential to me when I watched wrestling as a kid, someone who I like loved their persona, who broke my heart when he went to WCW. And then, obviously, he had his falling out, and then now he's back on recovery. It was actually really neat, and I'll share a story with you about that night as well. I met Scott Hall, and I was asking about Cody Hall, his son, and it was actually ironic because I think I was reading something about him a couple days earlier that I guess that night I think when he had to leave early, I think something actually happened to Cody. He had to get on the first flight back to Japan. I think someone told me, and it was like, that was sad. That was like the first time I met him, and something happened to Cody literally maybe a couple hours after I just asked about him and told him how excited I was for his future. And then he had an injury and came down with it, but it's still one of the greatest things that ever happened to me was going to IWC that night and meeting Scott Hall. And it just, because they know how you always say, like, when you meet your heroes, like, you don't want to meet your heroes because you never know how they're really going to be. I was so worried to meet Scott Hall because I knew like the past. And when I finally got to meet him, got to meet how genuine a person was, like, he actually wanted to sit there and talk with me. And like his line was so big. I was like, look, dude, this line's too big. I can sit here and talk to you for hours, just kind of like I'm talking to you right now. But this line's never going to get shorter if I sit here any longer. So I got to get the hell out of here.
Another thing I remember from that event is, and obviously this isn't something that anybody would know unless you were there. Scott Hall, the entire event, I think the event started with Scott Hall coming out and cutting a promo in the ring, welcoming everybody to the event type thing. And when Scott Hall went through the curtain and finished his promo, he pulled up a chair and sat at the curtain and watched the entire event. He watched everybody's match, critiqued them when they came through the curtain, and he didn't leave. He sat there and watched every match. And that's something that's so cool because obviously he doesn't have to do that. He could have came and got his payday and left. So that's just a little peek behind the curtain. But obviously you said, you get this feeling meeting Scott Hall, and, it's the same thing, when you're in the locker room and you're a part of it too, because you have to think to yourself, like, oh my God, like that's Razor Ramon. And there's been so many, people that have come through the IWC locker room and Ring of Honor as well. Like my first couple months in Ring of Honor, I'm sitting there putting my tie on, and there's Cody Rhodes, and there's the Young Bucks, and here comes Kenny Omega, and
just name all my favorite wrestlers.
Asking me about my wife, like it's just weird, like, and you're talking to these people like, like they're just normal people, and then in the inside you're thinking like, wow, this is so surreal. And eventually that does settle down the more you're around those people, but you can't help but feel that way. And I feel like if you're sharing a locker room with a Razor Ramon or a Kevin Nash or a Kurt Angle, whoever it may be, and you don't get that fanboy feeling, then I don't think you belong in the locker room. It's one thing, it's one thing to go up and act like I'm an idiot and, oh, can I get a picture with you, and can you sign this, and can you do this? Because on one level you're supposed to be their peer now. You're not the fan anymore, you're their peer. You're sharing the locker room, and obviously they're a much bigger star than you, and they made a lot more money than you, or whatever the deal may be. But I've had no issue with somebody saying, oh my God, that's Chris Jericho. But then whenever you go up and tell them about, oh, I saw this match with you, and I did this with you, and I did this with you, then it's like, maybe you should be on the other side of the
exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. So it's like, as much as you want to be a fanboy, you got to remember to be professional too.
You got to remember your place. Yeah,
exactly. That's where I'm in the process trying to get that all still figured out too. But like you said, it takes time, because you're getting into this thing where I'm interacting with wrestlers every once in a while, especially IWC guys, and it's great because I've been following you guys for so long now. But as I get into it more and more, I think I'll get into what you said. Just be like, okay, let me interview you, have a conversation, and then I can if we wanted to talk about later something down the road, we can do that. But being that we got into just about every little bit of wrestling thing we could think of, because as much as I love wrestling, I also love figure collecting, and I love action figures. And I noticed you from your giant cabinet of Power Rangers figures. I wanted to dive in a little bit of that. So, out of all of those figures you have, is there one of those that has the most sentimental value to you?
I don't know. It was a couple of years ago that I got a call from my dad. He was taking out the Christmas decorations or putting the Christmas decorations back in their attic at their house. And he came across all my Power Ranger figures, and he called me and he said, listen, you got to do something with these because they're in the attic, you don't live here anymore. They're just taking up space. You either need to, sell them or take them to your house, So when I looked at them, I pretty much had, a pretty complete collection. I was into Power Rangers from the time they came out, and I think it was 93, 94, whatever it was. And then I was a huge fan up until I started watching wrestling. So I had pretty much the complete sets of everything that was in there. So I said, you know what? I went and I got a display case. I didn't tell my wife about it until it was up. So I got a display case, put all the figures in, and I have all the Power Rangers on one shelf. I have a helmet and gloves and the Morpher on one shelf. I have all the bad guys on one shelf. And so that's it that at our house. But I do have all my wrestling figures still at my parents' house because I just don't have anywhere in my house to put them right now. And I have almost an entire room in my parents' house covered with them that I started when I was little and just kept adding to.
Well, that's why I brought up the Major Wrestling Figure podcast, because I know a lot of the, like, I love just hearing them talk about the old wrestling figures from back in the day, because as a kid, like on your birthday, on Christmas, sometimes, hell, even sometimes on Easter, your parents were taking you to go get some toys at Toys R Us, and the first thing I was going, my brother and I were going straight to the wrestlers aisle.
Yeah,
we tried to build the best collection we can, because my brother and I, we would build shows I think my brother's 2 years younger than me, so at 10 he was 8. We're building full-on shows with people. We had belts, we had chairs, we had tables. I think at one point we had an elimination chamber. Like, it was like we took our fantasy booking very serious, to where now I do it now on SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 or 2008. But and so to find more people now realizing as an adult that it's not just me who has that feeling. That there's actually a podcast about it. Obviously, on your Facebook, I've seen something about it, and it's just kind of neat to see people collecting wrestling figures and just really kicking everything back to their childhood. Like right now, I can't necessarily say I'm collecting wrestling figures, because I'm just trying to get figures of my favorite wrestlers and get them to sign them, and then I want to put them all in like a case.
Yeah,
but I'm doing something like that with my PS2 games. So the PS2 was very influential to me as a kid. So I'm now buying all the PS2 games I played as a kid, and I'm trying to replay them as an adult, and just to see like what I missed out on as a kid. Because I think I was playing Def Jam Fight for New York, and I was playing it around, which is like a wrestling game that's all about the rappers.
Yeah,
and I love it to death. And I'm playing it now. I played it and I beat it maybe a couple months ago, and I was like, "This is a completely different, like this is a completely different world." Like even watching Indian in the Cupboard was a completely different world for me from a kid to an adult. So I can only imagine what some games were like, and it's like I said, it's great to see us. Like, I mean, you're not much older than me, let's be honest, and for people like us to talk about wrestling figures at anywhere from like 29 to 35, it's really awesome. Like, and it like I said, it brings you back to your child a little bit. That's why, like, as far as sentimental value figures I have, I think I had like an old Rock that was always the WWE champion no matter what happened. Like, yeah. He could get beat up by 4 or 5 people. The Undertaker could come out, Tombstone Pile Driver, no matter what, he's kicking out at 2 and he's finishing off with a rock bottom. Like there was not a time that my brother was, because we had to have 2 different belts, because my brother was a Stone Cold guy, I was a Rock guy, and we never had them clash because it never worked out well. And then it led into my brother and I getting in a fist fight, and then my parents having to come downstairs, and they had this rivalry upon each other, because that's how That's SmackDown vs. Raw. Well, this was probably SmackDown vs. Raw 1999. I'm gonna call it my Ian and Greg Bernardo right there. So let's get back onto the Power Rangers real quick. So, what was your favorite Power Rangers moment that made you become a fan, or is it just the idea of the Power Rangers in general, just being able to mega morph and having all these like really neat powers?
I couldn't tell you what it was. I don't know. I can't remember. I can't remember what the first episode I saw was, and I can't remember the first toy I got or anything like that. I just always remember being into it. I was the White Power Ranger one year for Halloween, and yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I couldn't tell you. Like, it's really weird because as far as wrestling goes, I remember what it was that got me into wrestling and how I started watching wrestling. And I remember some of my, favorite wrestlers growing up and the whole deal, but like Power Rangers, it was just pretty much the whole thing, I guess. And those were really the Power Rangers and wrestling figures were really the only two collections that I ever really had.
Yeah, that's like me with my PlayStation games and just random, like, I think I have a whole bunch of random like anime and video game statues. Just like anything, like it's just whatever your niche is. Like there's people out there who they like get criticized, like collectors, but like there's people who out there are spending money on hurting themselves or hurting others. So if nerds like us or people like us who just like to collect things, if we're spending our money on that, then rather going out and buying drugs or putting harm to other people, I feel like we're doing just fine, and you guys should stay in your own lane. You know what I mean?
You gotta do what makes you happy.
Let us be nerds, okay? I like it, okay? I've been telling people all my life, like, there is nothing wrong with being a nerd. I've been proud of it my entire life, and if you have an issue with it, well, obviously I'm better than you because I have no issues. Well, I'm gonna ask you real quick. Like, I don't know if you were much of a cartoon guy. Were you a big cartoon guy? I wanted to do. I want to ask just a little random question here that I had. It's just a little fun one. So if you had to choose a cartoon show between Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network, who was going to stay and who was going to go?
Nickelodeon. I was always a Nickelodeon guy. I was never really a Cartoon Network guy.
Really? So what was some of your favorite Nickelodeon shows? Were you into like the Double Dare, or did you like the actual like the cartoons? Because I was a huge like Legion of the Hidden Temple, or what was it called? Legion of the Hidden.
Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Legends of the Hidden Temple. Thank you.
I used to like figure it out when they had the slime come down.
Yep.
But as far as cartoons go, I remember watching like the Rugrats and Rocko's Modern Life and Hey Arnold.
Yes.
And
Cat Dog.
And Cat Dog. Even some of the like all that and Kenan and Kel and all that. Like, it's weird because I can go on and on about the Nickelodeon shows, but then Cartoon Network, like, I didn't really watch anything on Cartoon Network.
I was a mixture of both. My brother, we lived in a 50-50 house. If I like something, my brother liked the exact opposite. I like red, my brother liked blue. Yeah. I like vanilla, he likes chocolate. So it was I had a little bit of a both. So I enjoyed a lot of the Cartoon Network shows, but Nickelodeon always was ranked superior because, like you said, Rugrats was always on. Angry Beavers, Rocket Power. There's so many like really neat cartoon shows that I wish would be brought back, and we're actually in the process of getting a Rugrats 3D-ish thing coming back. I told my mom about it because she was a really big Rugrats fan, and she was pretty stoked. And I was shocked because she's been off the Rugrats train since I was like, maybe 8 or 9. So the fact that she got as excited as she did about it was great. But that's really good. But yeah, I was a huge Legends of the Hidden Temple guy. I want them to bring that back too. That was such a great show. A lot of those game shows I feel like were very underrated as Nickelodeon kids in the 90s. But I'm glad. I want to appreciate you for answering that because I didn't know how that was going to go. I feel like everyone enjoyed cartoons, or at least one of those two channels as a kid. So which one someone enjoyed most is always something I'm interested in. But with that all being said, Nick, I took up most of your time today. You've been truly a blessing to come around and have a conversation with. I'm always a huge fan of yours, always will be. And we still got to take that picture together. You promised me.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. With that being said, do you have anything you'd like to say to everyone else before we end the show here?
Yeah, anybody that's watching, I just appreciate the support. Not just me, but IWC and Ring of Honor as well. Ring of Honor coming up on, I believe, Friday, March 26th, they're having the 19th anniversary pay-per-view, so that'll be available on pay-per-view, on our club, all the ways you can stream it live. IWC, March 20th, the 20th anniversary of IWC, huge event, Courttime Sports Center. I am not sure if it's sold out yet because we're still under I think we're only allowed to sell 250 tickets. So if it's not sold out yet, it's pretty close. So, if you can't be there, it's on the IWC network. I'm not sure if I'll be ring announcing, if I'm going to be doing commentary, backstage interviews, whatever, I'll be there. Thank you for, wanting to talk to me and breaking up my day a little bit here. Cause as soon as, I'm done here, I'm going to go be dad again. So, thanks for having me on.
No problem. Well, I appreciate you so much, Nick. And please, everyone, go ahead. Do you have social media so people can follow you on by chance, like Twitter, Facebook? I don't know what you prefer.
On Facebook, you search my name. YouTube, you can search my name. There's all kinds of stuff that'll come up. Twitter, I'm at Nick Lendl. Instagram, at Nick Lendl Announcer. All my bookings, video clips, pictures from recent events, everything like that. All on there. You can follow me on there. You can check me out at IWC. Follow Ring of Honor.
And make sure you guys listen to the Spotlight. The Spotlights are really awesome, and Nick really took a lot of time into doing that, as well as any of the IWC stuff. Six Pack, Jack,
yes,
all of them. Like there wasn't a bad one. Xander Zone was one of my favorite ones. He's the only one who may be a little bit above you, just a little bit above you. Just it's trivia. I love trivia.
That's all right. I was on the Xander Zone, so that's
you were, and I was disappointed in you because you played so bad. But that's another story for another day. All right. Well, again, Nick, thank you so much for coming on to the show, taking time. And I thank everyone for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.